I will actually put that topic at the end of the course because otherwise we will run out of time for today. Okay, so we said that in the web application firewall we have up to 3 ports. We have the WAN port, the LAN port, and the management port. Okay, now each one of these ports have its own network security group. Now, what is a network security group? A network security group is an independent routing entity that will contain routes, network access list, NAT rules, VLANs information, virtual interfaces, which is applied to a specific port. Now, for the management port, we have a management network group. Okay. For the WAN port and the LAN port, since this is the data path, okay, so this is where the traffic is actually be traversing the WAF, we have 2 network security groups. One is called vSites, and the other one is called system. Okay. Now, whatever you have configured in the vSites will be processed first, and if nothing is found in the vSites, then the WAF will query the system network security group. All right. So if there is no access list, for example, for some traffic in the vSite, then the WAF will query the system group, and if there is no blocking access list, for example, then the traffic will go through. All right, because the WAF can also filter a layer 4 if you want. Okay, so that's why we have network access lists. So we have these 3 network security groups that will allow you to basically decide how packets should be routed through the WAF. All right. Now, vSite in reality is not just a single network group, but vSites are actually independent entities in the WAF. You have to see vSites as multiple virtual machines that are running on a hypervisor. And this will allow you to segment the web application firewall in multiple web application firewalls. Okay, so it's essentially you have a system, you have one system, and then you segment this WAF into multiple logical devices. All right, so the example that I normally do when I explain vSite is that the WAF is the hypervisor. Okay, so it's like VMware. You have 2 interfaces, the WAN and the LAN, and you have the configuration of the interfaces, which is called the box IP layer. This is what you configure in the IP configuration page. All right. Then inside the WAF, you can have multiple vSites. These vSites are like virtual machines, okay, that are running on a hypervisor. All right. Inside each virtual machine, you can have different operating system, and in this case, these are different services. Okay. The only difference is that vSite can contain multiple services, not just one. All right. Now, don't be confused here. There is no virtualization process in the WAF. Okay, this is just a comparison, just to explain to you what vSites are. Okay, so you can basically split the WAF in multiple pieces and then configure these pieces independently. So each vSite will have its own routing table, its own network access list, its own VLAN information, and so on. You can configure vSites only if you have a model 660 or a higher model. Okay. There is a question. Is it to use WAF for MSPs? You could use vSites with MSPs. Okay. This is for example, if you want to provide the WAF and use multiple service providers to use the same box. Yes, you could use vSites and segment the box to provide services to multiple customers, for example. Okay, this can be done. Nobody will stop you doing this. Or you can assign multiple vSites to a single customer, right? So it is very flexible, all right? There is another question. Do we have to delegate admin information for every vSite? Of course. If you have different administrators in the WAF, and I will show you on day 3 how you do this, then each administrator has to be able to manage a specific vSite or a group of vSites. Okay, this will allow you also to have multi-administration access and to use the WAF for MSP. There is another question. So you link the service group to the vSite and policies are applied to the vSite number. No. A service group is just a representation. It's just a group of services. Okay. Now, in the interface, a service group is this folder here. Okay. You really don't have any properties in this folder. It's just a folder. All right. This folder can be, for example, customer A, customer B, customer C, or you can have web application A, web application B, web application C, and you create groups by clicking yes here when you add a service. Okay, so they are like folders that contain multiple services. Okay, logically, these service groups are the next in line where after vSites. vSites are this small router icon. Let me increase the zoom here. You see this icon here? This is a vSite. Okay, so this is the first layer of segmentation. Then you have service groups, the folders, and then inside folders you have services. Inside services, you then apply the security policies. Security policies are always applied per service. Okay, not per service group, not per vSite, but per service, as we will see tomorrow. Okay, so again, security service groups are just folders. vSite, segmentation of the WAF. Okay. How do we create vSites? We click Add vSite here, and we can call this vSite, for example, vSite 2. Okay. The interface that is listening to is the one you can choose actually. Yes, the system has a default vSite, which is the default vSite with the default security group, and you cannot delete this default security group and vSites. If you want, you will not use them. Okay, you just have to leave them there empty and add to everything to your vSites if you don't want to use them. But the current one is the default one. Okay, so I have added my vSite 2. And as you can see, the system automatically has created a service group, okay, called vSite 2 group. Okay, yes, sure. To add a vSite, just click Add vSite here. And then you just have to create, you have to give it a name. Okay. So this is, again, if you need to have settings, network settings separated from one service to another one. All right, that's the separation that vSites will actually give you. Now, how do we configure all the settings for vSites or the management secure network group or the system group? We go to advanced networking. And the first thing that the system will show you is the network group. So here we have system, management, default, vSite 2. So let's say that we want to configure something for vSite 2. We click on vSite 2. And for example, we can create an access list that will, for example, block, I don't know, ICMP traffic. Oh, sorry. ICMP traffic. All right, so no echo requests are allowed for all the services that are inside this vSite, or for a specific service. Okay, you can specify the destination information, or we can have different routing table, or we can have different interfaces. Okay, this is for vSite 2. If I open vSite 1, so default, you can see that in the interfaces tab, we already have two interfaces, BedStore and BedStore SSL. Yes, these are the interfaces that are used for our services. All right, listening to different ports. And this is the network interface, the physical interface that are listening. If we open the access list, nothing in there, information access, nothing is there. Okay, by default, these are not configured. All right. If we go to system, we have a new option in system, and this is the configuration of the system network security group, which will allow you to enable source NAT for all LAN servers. This is used if you, for example, want to have the backend servers to connect to the internet, for example, to download Microsoft updates, okay, Windows updates. They are behind the WAF. They cannot connect to the internet. So what they do, the WAF will source NAT these servers. By default, this option is set to no. Leave it to no, please, and configure the source NATing in your vSite configuration. Firewall settings, the firewall, the network firewall of the WAF can protect you against SYN attacks. So by default, the SYN guard is turned on. So if somebody started to do a SYN attack, then the WAF will prevent it. Okay. There is a question, vSite interfaces need to have the same IP addresses. No. vSite interfaces are configured automatically as soon as you add a service. Okay. They don't have to have the same IP addresses, and you can create custom interfaces which are not binded to any service. Okay, they're just there just for routing. Yeah, that basically is how you configure the network group. Then we have management. Then that is the third network group. Okay, with again interfaces, routes, VLAN information, and so on. So again, you're going to use vSite only if you need this network separation, or if you want to create an active cluster. Now, if you want, you can cluster together two web application firewalls. Okay. Now, this will allow you to have a high availability deployment. So if one box dies, the other one will take over the traffic. And you can also use two boxes in an active state at the same time. You do this by placing different vSites into different boxes. That's it. Okay, so in this case, the default vSite will run on box A, for example, and vSite 2 will run on box B. All right, so this will allow you to do an active traffic. If you don't have vSites, because maybe you have a model 460, or you don't want to create an active cluster, you can create an active standby cluster. That in this case, all vSites will be in one unit, or if you have a lower model, all services will be in one unit. Okay. Now there are some requirements in order to create a cluster of web application firewalls. They have to be on the same model two 660s, two 860s, two 960s, and so on. And they have to be running on the same. They have to run the same firmware. All right. Also, you have to configure the interfaces before you create a cluster. Everything that is in the basic IP configuration page must be configured. And you must ensure network connectivity over the WAN interface. The WAN interface is what is used to create the cluster, not the management interface, not the LAN interface, the WAN interface. Okay, this is very important. All right. It is a best practice to put the WAN interfaces in the same logical network, so in the same VLAN. All right. This is actually because otherwise it will create some problems. Now, this is an example of active setup. We have two web application firewalls, WAF01, WAF02. The WAN interfaces are connected to the same layer 2 device on the top here, and the LAN interfaces are connected to the same backend switch. Now, vSite 1 is active on WAF1, and vSite 2 is active on WAF2. Okay, so if something happened to WAF1, for example, let's say that WAF1 has some problems, there is a link down, there is the WAF is not able to serve the traffic, the heartbeat is lost somehow, WAF1 is down, this vSite will become active. All right, that's it. Of course, as soon as you create a cluster of web application firewall, the system will sync their configuration. All right, so you don't have to configure things twice. Even certificates are synced, everything is synced. Okay. Yes, I will be able to show you the clustering procedure, but I won't be able to cluster two web application firewalls because I only have one WAF available as instructor VM. All right. So let's switch to the advanced section of the interface. We go to high availability. And this is how you configure clustering in the WAF. In the system which is already configured, okay, the system that you have some configuration in it, you configure the cluster shared secrets, which is a password that both systems will share. Then it can be whatever, okay? Then you configure the failback mode, automatic or manual. You configure which links should be monitored, when is clicked and cannot be unchecked. Okay, this is the interface we use for clustering. If you want, additionally, you can also monitor for the LAN and the management interfaces if they're used. Then you can configure the heartbeat settings, for example, the frequency, the count per interface, if we want to transmit a heartbeat only on the one interface or on the one and the management interface. So we have some kind of redundancy. Okay, maybe we miss an heartbeat on the one interface, but we receive it from the management, so we can be sure that we don't have a failover because of a missed heartbeat. Okay, and then in this box, again, this is the configured box, we click Save. Now, on the secondary box, which is not configured, you only did the basic configuration of the network settings of the box, you configure exactly the same settings as you configured in the primary box. You click Save, okay, and then you scroll down, and in the clustered system sections, you enter the IP address of the WAN interface of the primary system. And then you click Join Cluster. As soon as you click Join Cluster, this box will have its configuration overwritten by the system which you have specified here in the peer IP address section. Okay, so be careful, because if you do this procedure the wrong way, you're going to override the configured WAF with an empty configuration. Okay, so be careful when you actually do this. Now, that's it. That's what you have to do in order to create a cluster of web application firewalls. There is nothing else that you have to do. Now, as you can see that in this case, we have the two vSites that are active only in this box. All right. If you would have had another box, then you could have clicked on another vSite and say acting of peer unit, and then the vSite would be transferred on the other unit. But in this case, I'm sorry, I cannot show this to you. All right. So, do you have any questions regarding anything that we have seen today before we start the hands-on labs? In the meantime, I'm preparing the email with all the documents.